Morning. How are you?
Good morning. Good, good. Yourself?
Good. Can you see me today?
I can. Just tilt your camera just a bit. I was just getting the sort of the top of your head. No, it's perfect. That's perfect. Hey, Michelle, are you okay with me recording this session? I mean, you never know. We might want to post it up on YouTube at some point.
Sure.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, so no, thanks for connecting. I mean, I always appreciate the opportunity when somebody reaches out to me on LinkedIn to take the conversation offline, off the platform, and just try to make a real connection with somebody to see if we can be of service to each other. I've found that really works well.
Yeah, I think that's great, and I love it. And I've taken a look a little bit about what you do and the session you're having on the 3rd, and it looks amazing.
Yeah, I try to combine all of my passions together. So I mean, we're very fortunate here in living in wine country in Niagara, and it always amazes me how so few people actually leave the GTA and come over here and experience what wine country is really all about. So there's a couple of hidden gems. So I thought I would bring some people out to my favorite winery and have an afternoon of just enjoying some of what Niagara has to offer and wrap that in around a conversation of growth. So I think it's the right setting. I think it's the right tone. And hopefully people will leave that session inspired to go back to their organizations with some applications, some practical applications that they can start implementing to change the culture of their organization. Because there is no rocket science here. It's just culture. And if you can wrap people's heads around just being, aware of the choices they're making, the impact of those choices. Sometimes we don't communicate our long-term visions well. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we try to do. I mean, the funny thing is, and I know Michelle, why don't you tell me a little about yourself? You've done some research on me. I've done some research on you just based on our LinkedIn profiles. Yeah. Tell me about your coaching experience and what success you've had.
Yeah, for sure. Well, this is my second time out, actually. I'm relaunching Alchemy, which is the name of my coaching practice. I was coaching a number of years ago and was doing a lot more career coaching. So what happened to me is I was at Bell for 17 years and I got let go and just due to downsizing. And I found myself at 48 going, oh God, now what? Now what do I do? So I took a little bit of time trying to figure out, what did I love? I was in human resources. What did I love about what I did? And it was really the relationship piece with the client. So I didn't even know what it was called at the time, but it's coaching. So a friend of mine said, why don't you take a look at getting your certification? So I did. I started my own practice. It was very small, peaks and valleys. And what was coming to me were mostly people in my situation who had been let go, who were at mid-career or at the end of their career, wanting to make a change or having to make a change. Mm-hmm. So I coached in that regard. And then just circumstances were, and I was asked to go back into HR in an HR business partner role at Rogers. So I was there for about 3.5 years. That was the last stint. I left there in December. Fortunately, they have a terrific, they think coaching is amazing. So everyone there is getting coached or learning how to coach. So I was able to coach while I was there. Gave me a huge opportunity to deal with executives. And I really started to focus in, because I knew I was going to be leaving and relaunching my practice. I wanted to focus in on what's really needed out there. Yeah. And it became very clear to me that it's around emotional intelligence, mm-hmm. Self-awareness, self-perception, empathy, decision-making, all of the competencies. So when I saw you, I thought, wow, this really speaks to me about what you're doing, particularly the start with why piece, because it begins here and it begins with our values, our, perception of ourselves, our self-awareness. And it starts with why are we doing what we do? Mm-hmm. So I have worked with executive level right down to non-management, and I'm focusing now on the emotional intelligence piece as the starter for the coaching. So what I do is I do assessments, and they're psychometric assessments, and I'm certified to do this. You can't take that. I can't unless you are certified. So they go through the assessment, and what happens is you then identify gaps. And there are certain competencies which really should be in balance if you are looking at a high level of emotional competencies, emotional intelligence, in order to be the best leader that you can be, or reach the goals that you want to reach, or get unstuck as an individual and move forward. So it's really interesting to me what comes out of this in regards to where the balances should be, where the gaps are, and what you need to work on. So it's a terrific fire starter for that coaching piece. Yeah.
So it's really interesting. You mentioned a couple of things there that really resonated with me. One, getting unstuck. I use that analogy all the time because I often say, having a growth mindset and a fixed mindset is like being stuck in the mud, right? And to move forward, to get momentum moving forward, it's going to be messy. You're going to have to get a little bit dirty, but you're going to get eventually to where you want to go if you've got a vision of where you want to go. Or you can be stuck there forever and just not do anything, and your life will be what it'll be. Or you can do some worse things and go back. And that's just a mess too. So, I like the ideology of being stuck, but what's also resonates with me is the fact that you went back to work to learn how to coach, and literally coach that audience. So if you've looked at my LinkedIn profile, I joined NIIT because I was coaching some executives in the C-suite level in Toronto. One of them came over to this organization. They were a chief learning officer of a large organization. They came over to NIIT, and they quickly realized they needed some support in project management. And they asked me if I would be, if I had the bandwidth to do it. And I thought, well, I've never been in this industry, the adult training, learning industry, the corporate training industry before, but I don't know anything about it. And people are asking me to come out and speak, and people are asking me to do more coaching. So I better learn something, right? I mean, for me, it was always just going based on my experience, trying to sort of deconstruct what happened right in my life, so that I could share that with my friends who were asking me what the heck went right. And then all of a sudden you put yourself in this situation where there are expectations in the corporate world of proper etiquette and just how you're supposed to sort of communicate on that level. And so much like you, I went to learn, and I'm still learning. One of the greatest opportunities I have right now, like you say, is being able to sit in a room with C-suite executives and listen to what their challenges are, what's keeping them up at night, and what are the challenges they have engaging their employees. And it's not always building the shiniest training or the most expensive training or the most mobile training that's going to do things for people. It's do they want to learn in the first place? And what do we do to inspire a lifelong learner? And why does that matter to them? And what is the vision that they have for the future? And how do they see themselves fitting into that future, being the hero of their own story? I mean, motivation is very simple. You have to have a vision where you want to go, and you got to deconstruct the recipe and say, okay, this is where I want to go. So this is the recipe I've got to follow. And it's not going to be easy. And it's not usually going to be straightforward. There's going to be some zigs and zags, but you've got to keep your mind open to growth and new opportunities, because if you don't, any road will take you anywhere, and that's not where you want to go. It's funny because my journey really started out in a fitness vein.
I saw that.
Yeah, I mean, I was never destined to become an Ironman triathlete. That was never part of the vision. That was an afterthought after becoming from going from a couch potato to a runner who ran every day because I didn't want to die of a heart attack and didn't want to take the cholesterol and heart pills the doctor wanted to give me. So I had two choices: take the pills or do something good for my heart every day. Well, that was a pretty easy decision to make, and that's where it started. And then all of a sudden, 3 years later, I literally, after running for 3 years in a row without taking a day off, bump into an Ironman triathlete and thinking that that's just something that university, ex-collegiate athletes or Olympic athletes do at some point, right? Like, who does that? And then I learned about that whole idea of becoming a triathlete and that whole journey. And when that happened 3 times over, I went, well, hey, how did that happen? What changed mentally and emotionally for me that I was able to go from that guy that was no better or worse than anybody else to crossing those finish lines, continually learning, and being able to take so much of what I learned back into my day-to-day life and my business life, and learning that the challenges that I thought really aren't that difficult. When you really put yourself out there and you really understand that there's a lot more you can give, boy, that resonates well when you go back to the office and you have to face tough challenges, or you have to be part of a bigger team. Like the Ironman, doing a triathlon is very, very individualistic, but you're part of this larger community. And the community is there to support each other. It's just, it's an amazing, amazing feeling to be part of something bigger than yourself. And we all celebrate getting to the finish line. Maybe not together, but we all celebrate the fact that there doesn't have to be just one winner. The beautiful part, and most people don't understand this or know about this, in Ironman racing, the winners of the race, the pros, come back and hand out the medals at midnight to the people who've been on the race course for 18 hours.
Wow.
And there is no other sport in the world where that happens.
Wow.
And they will tell you, as amazing as it is for them to do the race in 8 hours, they have nothing but respect and admiration for people who are out on the race course for 18 hours.
Wow.
You know, like that's just a ridiculous amount of time. And usually those are really people who are either, you know, less fit or older, who are really battling their demons to get across the finish line. It's so emotional, but yet it's such a strong sense of community. So there's just so many lessons to be learned, so much to share. And I'm just trying to figure out how to share it, you know, in a way that resonates with people.
Wow, that's incredible. I mean, that is like all the emotional intelligence flags are flying here. I mean, that is empathy at the highest degree.
Yeah, it was so empowering. So again, I'm just trying to deconstruct. So the books that you saw that I talk about my tribe of mentors, and they're books that are on my website, the people that I resonate the most with. You know, as somebody who's been in the speaking industry for 5 years, 6 years, I wrote a book 6 years ago, thinking that as a speaker I had to write a book. So I sort of did a story up to that point of my journey, and now there's just so many chapters to add. But the more books that I read, I think I just don't want to regurgitate what Simon Sinek wrote about Start With Why. I don't want to regurgitate what Dr. Greg Wells wrote about the ripple effect and all these great physical benefits you get from the 1% aggregate of improvements to your health every day. I don't want to write about Sean Akers' happiness. They've already done it, you know, or James Clear's Atomic Habits. They've already done that stuff. I just want to put it into practice. I just want to say, here's some great reading material, here's some great resources, but let's make it practical.
Yeah.
You know, because it's funny.
And then they have to internalize it.
Yeah.
So you're providing you're setting the table, you're providing the meal, the courses, but they actually have to eat it and they have to be nourished by it, right? And then they have to practice it.
Yeah.
So as you're talking, I'm thinking, you know, it's really interesting because when you're able to peel back what stands in your way, and I'm talking about the emotional piece, the paradigms that you hold, you can then have a greater opportunity to, you know, move forward, adopt and absorb methodologies, different ways of thinking, different ways of acting, changing your habits, changing your neural pathways correctly so that you can get to where you want to get to. That's the getting unstuck. Because the difference between, you know, why can't I do what Dave does? Why is Dave successful? You know, what's the difference there? The difference is, and this is what we assess. Like, where are the differences here? Why is somebody so successful and one person isn't? What's standing in the way?
Yeah. And it's funny, the conversations that I have with people around that. I mean, I don't do psychometrics. I'm not certified to do that. I tend to use what I call common sense and 30 years of experience in a marketing capacity where I was always inquisitive to understand why things happen. And it's funny, people think marketing is about creating a brand and trying to sell more things, more goods and services to people. I've always sort of turned marketing around. I've always tried to dissect, like when I saw a commercial, what was the message? Who are they trying to reach? I always try to take it backwards and try to understand what was really happening. And in business, I always try to see the business behind the business to understand. And that's all I'm doing with my health and wellness journey is, you know, it's ironic to me that, you know, 12 years ago, this was not my journey. This was not my future. And so many people today sit in their 40s thinking, oh my God, you know, so much is out of control. I don't have my diet right. I don't exercise. I mean, we know 97% of the population don't do any form of exercise, period. And that's a really scary number. And because of that inertia, there's a lot of bad things that are going to happen to these folks. I mean, we're living in a time now where the life expectancy of our kids is less than our parents, as opposed to going the other way around. It's because of the chronic illnesses that we're inflicting upon our children based on our lifestyles. And, you know, it's funny, a big part of my journey, and I don't know if this came across, is I would be the third generation to die in a nursing home from Alzheimer's and dementia, if that were to be my path. And it's funny, when I dig into those diseases and you start to understand the truth about those diseases, it's not about finding a cure. That's not what we should be doing. And I have these arguments all the time with the Alzheimer's Society or somebody who's involved with them. I said, it's great that you're trying to raise money, but how about we create awareness of the fact that, you know, less than 1% of cases of Alzheimer's and dementia globally are hereditary, which means they're familiar, which means that you've got the genetics, you're actually going to get this disease, there's nothing you can do about it. Less than 1%. So the other 99%, what causes the genetics to flourish are the lifestyle choices that we make throughout our life. And the beautiful part about what I've learned is that not only is it the diet that you eat that serves that disease, but it's also the exercise, the type of exercise that you do. And there's a lot of neuroscientists now coming out going, like, they've had their aha moment where they've gone, hey, this isn't just about, you know, learning about the brain. So many people have gotten into the science now of Alzheimer's and dementia because they understand that aerobic fitness, that between 60 and 80% of your maximum heart rate develops new brain cells. And when you do that, if you have the genetics, that, let's say you've been like me and you've destroyed your body for 40 years, you've done the damage, you've eaten the wrong foods, you totally, like everybody else, did the wrong stuff.
Yeah.
Is it possible to turn that around? That's the big question. And so I think what I help people do is I give them hope that there is the possibility that there's a better future and a brighter future for themselves. It's not going to be easy, but it requires clarity. It requires asking yourself, you know, it's like baking a cake. If you have a vision that you want to make a bundt cake, right? We all know what a bundt cake looks like. So you go to the store and you get the box of cake mix and you go home and you get all the ingredients together to make the recipe, but you don't have a round bundt pan. You've just got square or round cake pans. Yeah. Now, it's cake, but it's not a bundt cake. You set out to make a bundt cake. It's supposed to have a hole in the middle, right? And that's how we go through life. We think, well, I did exercise. I did eat the right sort of things some of the time, but that wasn't the real recipe. The recipe is the recipe.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah, and that's where I think coaching helps a lot, the after the fact of the realization. And you're singing my song. My mom passed away of Alzheimer's, so it was a very, very
sorry for that.
Very long goodbye, and my grandmother the same. So I know that it's hereditary. And I was a couch potato as well, a smoker, quite a heavy smoker, about a pack a day. I grew up in Montreal. Everybody smoked. You came out smoking. But at 38, I decided I got to do something. So I became a runner, and I've run.
Awesome.
Not like yourself, unfortunately, never made it to Ironman, but half marathons. I've done.
Awesome.
And I know the benefit of this. I know what change it made in me. But I also know it took a long time. Like it was a journey, and it was, you know, I needed help along the way. So I think it's fantastic about what you do. I think it's amazing to light that fire with people. What I love about coaching is that it becomes day two. Like, when I fall down, how can I?
Yep.
I need that help. I need to understand what my paradigms are in order for me to really grasp that goal.
Yeah. So I mean, if you're asking the question, how do you make it a habit that sticks? Is that kind of what you're asking?
Well, I know how you can do that. I think it's reinforcing it and really identifying the benefits. You know, making sure that you are clear about what I'm getting out of this. So
I'll share a story with you. Last night I was flying home from Chicago, and I happened to be sitting on a plane with a woman who is a business consultant, and she's turning 50, I think she said in December. And she was watching me. I was actually reading Yeah. Here's my plane ticket and my book I was reading as a bookmarker, Atomic Habits, rereading it because I love these books. And, I find that the more you read a book over and over again, the more you pick up on things you missed. So I'm scanning through it, just going through my highlighted notes. And she asked me, she said, why are you reading a book you've already read once? Because you can see all the highlights in it. I said, well, there's always, as you experience things in life, you learn. And you learn by doing. And she said, we shared our stories, and she said, I want to do a triathlon. That's my gift to myself for my 50th birthday. And I said, well, here's the trick. I said, I can talk to you about coaching, and I can talk to you about creating the recipe for success to get you to race day. But I said that the real mental battle that you need to face now is you have to assume the identity of a triathlete. So it's one thing to say that you're going to do a race. Yeah, you can sign up for it, put your money where your mouth is and sign up for the race. But the way you become a triathlete on race day, when you actually get to say, I've done a sprint triathlon or I've done whatever, is that you start assuming the identity today of that person. And you start assuming those habits that person does. And every day you get up and say, I'm a triathlete.
Yeah.
This is what a triathlete does. And I have the right recipe. And I just execute across that recipe. And before you know it, you are... you've assumed that identity. It is who you are. Like, I can't imagine a day going, this is a little bit of a misnomer. I say I can't imagine a day going by without exercising. I probably miss about 5 days a year. Yesterday was being one of them. I worked a 20-hour day from 3:30 in the morning till I got home at 2 o'clock in the morning this morning because of the flight, one day flight into Chicago and back. But there are 5 days of the year, and they kill me that I didn't exercise, because my identity is I win by exercising every day. I take care of my heart, my mind, and who I am as a person by exercising. And I love it. It's not like it's a chore. It's a pleasure to do it, and it serves me. And being able to share with people that journey, it's the most. Now, Michelle, do you actually do speaking as well as the coaching?
I would love to do more. I've done a bit, but not enough, because I've been in a corporate environment. So, I obviously facilitated there, and but I'd love to get out and do more of that.
The reason why I asked the question is because for me, the most gratifying moments are not giving the talk or the speech or the keynote. It's in the hallway afterwards, when everybody was too shy to put up their hand and ask questions. You spend 3 or 4 hours talking to people in large groups. I used to be the age group ambassador for Triathlon Ontario. They would literally send me out to the Toronto Marathon and the Niagara Falls Marathon to talk to runners about becoming triathletes, about not tearing their bodies down and looking at non-impact sports. And the best part of that was, it was like you're holding court. About every half hour, and one person would come up, and you'd have this amazing half-hour conversation that people would start to come and listen to. And then you'd look up, and there's like 30 people around you, and you're having this conversation. And then that group would go, and then you start it again. And it's just this joy of just sharing what you know. And it's, you're doing the right thing when that sort of thing happens, when it organically happens for you. Yeah. So the hard part for me is just trying to get more of those opportunities to have those organic moments. Right. So I looked online at your LinkedIn page, and what struck me was that, right now it seems like you're sort of just getting started with LinkedIn. You've got 580 followers. Do you have any questions at all about how to organically grow your reach in the HR space? Because that's where I am on LinkedIn, in the HR space. Is there anything that I can help you with to help grow your strategy there?
Sure. If you have any tips for me, I'm doing sort of a targeted message approach right now. I mean, a lot of my LinkedIn network is HR and other coaches. So there's collaboration opportunities potentially. And reaching out to people like yourself who do speaking, events. There's opportunities for me to either partner with you, with your clients after the fact or during the session. I'm open to all kinds of things. I definitely have a huge passion for what I do. And this is something I'd like to, I'm at a point in my life where I want to do what I want to do, and I'm lit up by this, and I want to share it. I want to be of service to people. And I've done my corporate HR gig, so So it's my time to really get out there. Yeah.
So what would be really, so a couple of things. One, I think collaboration is awesome. The fact that you're in Toronto and I'm in Niagara means we're close by, and the collaboration opportunities are very real. The events that I try to put together, so I've run events, well, I mean, my entire career I've run events, from trade shows to outdoor sporting events to like running events is kind of second nature to me. So, and that, hence the reason why we're doing the event at the winery coming up on the 3rd. But if you would like to reach out to me after this call and just maybe suggest how perhaps we can add more value to a larger event by adding a psychographics element to it, those are conversations that we can actually have offline. But what I would recommend is on LinkedIn, putting out content. Like you may have noticed in your news feed, now that we've connected, that I put out daily content.
Yeah.
I put out a 90-second video every day. I connect with probably about 30 HR people a day. One thing you want to watch for is that there are a lot of, there are marketing people on LinkedIn as well. Yeah. And they do a lot of things that will get you likes or get you connections really, really fast. I'm not about that. I'm about having quality conversations with people. And I think that approach will serve me well in the long run. Where some people make, 100 connections a day, I make 30 connections a day, but they're all with my targeted audience, and I invite those people into conversations. And I just think in the long run, quality will serve me versus having that how quickly can I get to 100,000 followers on LinkedIn?
I'm not interested in that, and I've been approached a number of times by those marketers.
Yeah.
Not interested at all, because this is a topic that needs to has that one-on-one touch.
Yeah. But what's interesting about that, and hopefully you can see that in the content that I create on a daily basis, and I do that in batch recordings. Like I'll do every weekend, I'll pull out of HR Magazine the 5 things that I want to talk about. I'll post that up. I'll do the recordings, and I'll have them ready to go. And so that every morning at 7 o'clock before I do my workout, I just post, and it goes off, and it has a life of its own for the day. And I respond to the comments. But that sort of organic reach, we've got to train people. If our audience, the funny thing is on LinkedIn, our audience isn't on LinkedIn. Like, even though you're an HR manager, you may have a professional profile on LinkedIn. It's usually not complete. People they look at it as a place to put their resume, not to have, unfortunately, great conversations around what we're passionate about, our HR issues. And we've got to change that dynamic. And the way that I'm finding success doing it, I'm happy to share that the strategy is, when I reach out to people on a daily basis, I invite about 100 people a day to join me on LinkedIn, just to follow me. They don't have to connect with me, just follow me. I said, these are the types of conversations that I have that I put out every day. If they're of interest to you and you want to lean in, please consider following me. Now, out of that, I get a bunch follow and about 30 connect with me. And then in the next day, when I put out my next video, I mention those people. I say, hey, this is the question of the day. Would love to get your feedback. And I mention those people. I'm trying to introduce the concept of having not a short answer, cute video, or like the video, or well done. No, what did you think? You're in HR. What are your thoughts? Let's have a conversation. Much like I talked about when you speak, you have those wonderful conversations after the fact in the hallway. I consider this the hallway. Right. And I want to have these engaging. So even if it's just with one person and we have a back and forth that goes back and forth 4 or 5 times across a day, like I had the other day with a gentleman from India, it was a wonderful conversation. It was very insightful, very thoughtful. It doesn't have to be, 100 people jumping in, although that'd be awesome.
Right.
It's about making that, like you said, that one-on-one connection with one person. Yeah. And if you can do that, and then it lives on the platform, and then people discover you, and they go back and they start reading some of your posts, and they start reading some of the questions, and they start reading some of the content, they start to see that it's actually real, yeah. And it's meaningful, and it's not just fluffy stuff. So I think we have to sort of train people as they connect with us what we want to get out of LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. And in my mind, it's furthering the conversation. Like, I look at LinkedIn as being an opportunity to scale my conversation. And I talk about everything that I would talk about in one of my talks that people would pay to come and talk to. And that's okay. Like, I'm happy to give it away, because I also know that when you get me in person, or when they get you in person, Michelle, they're going to get value that you just simply don't get through this medium, right?
Right, right. Yeah, well, that's a great method. I like what you're saying. Yeah, so to me, I've got to get ramped up on my content. I've got to, I mean, I'm out there, I'm posting, I've got a blog on my website, but
Well, it's good that you were, one of the things that's really good is that because you spent your time in the C-suite with those sort of executives, you understand what their pain points and their challenges are. To keep those conversations relevant, and Gary Vaynerchuk, who is an online marketer who I do follow, and I think he's fantastic because pardon me?
He's amazing.
He's amazing. And I learned that trick from Gary not too long ago. Quite often when I'm indoors riding my trainer, my bike, I'll have my laptop in front of me and I'll watch some of his works. And he had a speaker on one of his roundtable discussions. And she asked the question, I'd like to do more content, but what should I put out? And he said, well, do a Q&A. That's the easiest thing to do. And she said, but nobody's asking me questions. He goes, nobody has to ask me questions. Every industry has a trade publication. Go to the trade publication, start pulling questions out. Every paragraph has a header. Right. Start pulling it out and posing it as a question, which is what I did. And now I've got 2 HR publications asking to collaborate with me because they're seeing that I'm promoting their HR magazine, HRPA's magazine, which is, I think, is HR magazine. Is the one I'm currently promoting with my questions this month. HR Grapevine out of the States, they've asked me to collaborate with them as well. And so it just picks up momentum. And what am I doing? I'm providing commentary on works that they've already created. Right. And isn't that really what we're trying to do? Is just be topical.
Yeah.
They have their editorial agenda, which hopefully is sort of the pulse of what's going on in the industry. So rather than guessing, I just go to the latest issue and go, okay, I pull out 30 questions, go, there's next month's conversations, and I knock off, like I said, it takes work. I mean, there's no question. It takes a couple of hours a weekend to do it, but you tee it up for the week, and it makes it look like you're really busy every day, but really you've just taken 2 hours on the weekend. Because, I mean, to me, this is my passion. It doesn't feel like work, right? Like I combine my marketing with my mindset, with my wellness, with all these things are fun to me. So there is no, it could seem like a lot of work to a lot of people, I'm sure, but if you have sort of a growth, and I always go back, if you've got a growth mindset and you want to be inquisitive, you always want to be learning, you want to find best practices, and you want to share, and you want to learn to be a better communicator, well, you've got to, actually put your money where your mouth is and do the stuff that's hard so that you can learn how to do it to make it less hard for other people.
Of course. I love your passion.
Thank you.
Passion. It's just jumping off the screen here. Are you still training with NIIT?
Well, yeah. I was in Chicago yesterday with a client. So, what I do with them right now is I do business development. So in my contract with NIIT, I came on board with them with the understanding that I also have a speaking business. So the two of them actually fit very well together. And what's nice about it is because I don't come from the learning industry, I can't often talk to the conversations, the in-depth conversations of being in the learning industry for 30 years. And I'm still learning as I'm listening to some of the conversations. But at the end of the day, we're all people. And their biggest challenge is always, from an organizational standpoint, engaging, 20, 30, could be 10,000, could be 100,000, could be 200,000 employees, depending on the size of the company. How do you engage that many people across multiple platforms in bite-sized micro-learning that matters? These are all terms I couldn't even talk to 2 years ago. So when I develop business for them, the way that a big part of how I develop business for that organization is traditional emails, but I also go to trade shows and talk about the things that I'm passionate about. And I tell people, I've only been in this industry. Like, it's okay to go up to a VP of communications or a VP of learning and say, I've only been in this industry for 2 years, but I've been around for 30 years, and this is my experience. And if you want to learn more about me, go to my LinkedIn page, which is my story. And from there, you can find other content and material that expands on that story. And quite often, you'll find that people who are in a VP role in human resources are trying to learn about leadership skills. And what I talk about is leadership. How do you become a better leader? Well, for me, it starts at home. I can't speak to anybody else, but for me, it starts at home. If I learn how to lead my family without being preachy, think about it. My kids had to grow up with a dad who went ballistic on sugar and all I went through this huge learning curve and all these pain points, and my kids and my family paid the brunt of that punishment for, what has dad learned this week? What can we eat now? There's a moratorium on carbohydrates in our house, and no, actually carbohydrates are vegetables. That's not what we meant, Dad. And you deal with this. But the fun part of that is when you have these real conversations with senior people, hopefully they get the sense that when you boil it right down, you improve engagement by engaging with people and finding those one-on-one opportunities, and the opportunity that LinkedIn provides, or even your intranet, your company intranet, providing content to your employees as a manager or as a C-suite executive, by having conversations like this, posting a video like this on your intranet for 90 seconds, talking about what really matters to you in your life, allows people into your world. It allows them to feel your pain and your struggle, to realize they're not alone. And then if you can, so for my family, I often talk about them because I've struggled as a parent. We struggle as spouses, but I've been able to hold all of that together. And not only have we held it together, but we're on a trajectory now that is so far from the norm. We're a subset of the population that's healthy, that's happy, that's over 50, that's got well-balanced kids that talk about things like diet, nutrition, and mental health in a very healthy way. That we can have discussions like life isn't perfect, but when life isn't perfect, how do you face those challenges? Do you run towards them or do you run away from them?
Yeah.
So leadership, to me, if you can train with your family and help your kids help the family deal with the things that really, everybody wants more health and happiness. I've yet to meet a person in life that didn't want more health and happiness. So let's start with what brings us down. If we can learn how to eat nutritionally dense foods and what that looks like, and start, the goal isn't to lose 10 pounds. The goal is to assume the identity of somebody who eats well. So let's understand what that means and have robust conversations around nutrition and what we can learn. The idea isn't to become an Ironman triathlete. The idea is to assume the identity who values exercise and the benefits that brings. And they'll have conversations around, what are the outcomes that I want to get from exercise? Is it about losing weight, or is it about increasing my quality of life? And if I take a more pragmatic approach or a long-term approach, will that serve me as opposed to jumping on the scale every day and seeing how quickly it takes me to lose that 10 pounds, which unfortunately is usually just water, and that's why it comes and goes. And so, and then the mental health side of it to me is huge, because my two kids are 24 and 21. They both had their issues with life and growing up with parents who, all the traditional things we thought were good for them, some of them necessarily weren't. Some of them caused undue stress, university being one of them, and trying to sort that out. But how we sort of help them through those challenges has served them. Other kids we see fake their way through. It's paid for by their parents, everything, and they never really learn how to deal with adversity. And then they get thrown out into the real world. They don't get a job, and they go, but why can't I be employed? What's wrong? And then you say, well, let's start with the basics. You never learn to struggle. Yeah. So let's be honest about struggle.
Yeah. You have to peel back the onion. And I love this piece about visioning too. I'm a big proponent of visioning. So, assuming the identity, seeing yourself as, and in my stage in life, I'm over 60. So there's a,
I would have never guessed.
Well, thank you. See, it's running.
It is. Absolutely it is.
Yeah. But there's a whole demographic out there that reaches a certain point in life and just goes, well, okay, I guess that's it. I'm just going to go.
That's who you got to hit.
We have so much bandwidth. When I'm talking about you're 50 something and 52 and I'm 62. So there you go. So, but there's a large difference. I find after 55, there's a change in mindset.
There can be.
Yeah, there can be. And a lot of the population feels that way. They let them slide into those years rather than embracing that third act as the time where you can really reinvent yourself, be who you want to be. You've got the time, you've got the energy, you've got the bandwidth. It's very, very important for me.
Yeah, something that's funny, and to touch on that third act, something I actually heard Gary Vaynerchuk say this morning was the legacy. For him, the most exciting part about creating content isn't about building a business, it's creating a legacy for his grandkids.
Exactly.
And you know, for me, I think we have this amazing platform between YouTube and LinkedIn to reach out, create a legacy, create videos, create content that future generations will be able to go back and look at and go, you know what, even though it might be 20 or 30 years down the road, the information still serves. I can't imagine that anything that I'm talking about food and exercise and mental health will be any different 30 years from now. If not, the problem will be worse.
Yeah.
More people need to hear the message. So I think it's a sort of a timeless message, and just being able to have open, honest communication with your family. Again, that's a great place to start. And when we talk about vision, you know, I think more C-suite executives, it would benefit them and their organizations if they could be humble and do more corporate pieces like this, where they know who their audience is, whether again it's their employees or where they live on the internet. Yeah. Too many people use LinkedIn as either a placeholder for their resume or an arm of their corporate propaganda.
Right.
Those are two of the worst things you can possibly do. Yeah. It's a space for you to create a brand, an idea, share your vision, and be detailed in that. And then, you know, if you have to take them off the platform to other content that you've created, whether it be your blog or website or, you know, videos you've done on YouTube, great, so be it. But you know, it's just so many people who are professionals. There are so many people there. They're barely scratching the surface of the medium. And if you think about LinkedIn as what it is going to look like 10 years from now, I think we're in a very golden era right now, where the more meaningful connections that you can make on LinkedIn in your target market, the better the platform will serve you. And I don't even know how it's going to serve us, but I can only believe that there are very smart people running the platform. And because it's the largest business network in the world, I have to believe that it will reward people who are creating content, as it is currently right now. They're trying to, the more content you put out, and if you learn the rules of the algorithm of LinkedIn, the more it pushes your voice out or your content out of the mainstream, the newsfeed. And there are things that will pull it out of the newsfeed too. So for example, if you put an external link, a lot of my articles that I write have external links onto YouTube. That actually detracts. The algorithm will take it out of the newsfeed because it doesn't want to take you off the platform. So just learning little tricks like that. So all of my native videos that I post every day only get posted onto LinkedIn. There's no outside feeds, outside links. And I mention people to get internal action happening. And people normally do comment. And I will, when I post my video, I immediately like it and I immediately leave a comment, because the algorithm doesn't recognize that it's the author. They just recognize that somebody has shown some action. So again, it pushes it out onto the platform, makes it more visible. So I think there's a lot of opportunities with LinkedIn to get your message out, but you've got to be authentic, genuine, passionate, and just don't copy somebody else, just be yourself. Yeah. You know, I always love the idea of speaking your truth. That's a Gary Vaynerchuk thing. And here I talk about not copying people. That's his thing. You know, I'm not from the HR world. I'm a parent. Does that make me part of the HR world? I've been in business for 30 years.
They're humans.
We all put our pants on the same way, you know? So I think. I'm not in people's bedrooms. I don't know.
That's certainly a lot for me to learn, and I so appreciate you connecting with me. Yeah.
Well, so listen, we should continue the conversations. Please feel free to reach out anytime. Always open to ideas to collaborate and to add more value to or events that I do. Or even just to share, if you come back and say, Dave, I'd really like to maybe develop some content. This is what I was thinking. I'm always happy to share at least what's worked for me. It may not be right or wrong. It just is what's worked for me and what's not worked for me.
Right.
As a marketer, remember I told you I spent a lot of years trying to understand the business behind the business. Right. And what I've learned is that there's a lot of people out there who would love to sell you a program on how to use LinkedIn or how to market on LinkedIn.
Right.
Those are the people I'll help you stay away from.
Right.
There's enough good. I think Gary Vaynerchuk's a great example, because he gives away his content strategy for free.
Yeah.
And that's part of this trip is give your best stuff away for free. Know where to go find those resources. And if you're passionate about following that process and being a practitioner of executing the strategy of what works on the platform, you'll be successful. Like, I don't go on to Facebook or LinkedIn. I mean, I've got a Facebook profile, and when I post my articles on LinkedIn, they get pushed out onto Facebook, but I don't go on Facebook. I don't go on Instagram. I don't go on Twitter. Yet I have a presence there because things get pushed out there.
Yeah.
Right? So
yeah, I'm not a big fan of Facebook.
Yeah, that's a young man's game.
Yeah, and it's
a game.
Right. Yeah. So, but yeah, this is great. As I say, lots for me to learn as I stretch myself out there, and I really appreciate it. I love connecting. I love your energy. I love
Thank
your
you.
passion. You know what I do. You know the coaching that I do around emotional intelligence. You know, if you think that there is an opportunity for us to collaborate on something, please don't hesitate.
Yeah, I mean, in my perfect world, when I decide to retire, that will mean that I am going to be doing events full time. There is no retire into the sunset. There is retires from earning a paycheck from another person. Like, again, I've been an entrepreneur for 30 years. When I retire, that means I've left NIIT. I've learned what I needed to learn about working with organizations, larger organizations, and I found the recipe that serves everybody. They're a wonderful organization, and I might spend 10 more years with them, helping them develop business if I'm still learning. And that's the point. I've always got to be learning. And in my journey, I've never looked at any opportunity as a bad opportunity, so long as I can learn something from it. And so long as I'm continually learning, I'll stay there and keep expanding my horizons. But when I say that because I'm learning about psychometrics, and from our company's standpoint, and the role that plays in learning. And you and I might have another conversation, and I might say, hey, let's put together an event where you take over the morning, I'll take over the afternoon, you tee them up, and then I'll finish them off. Depending on how you mean, there's so many opportunities how we can collaborate and share and add value. But I love doing events. I love one-on-one, but I also love being in a group with 30 people or speaking to 500 people.
That would appeal to me as well. And it's funny, you talk about retirement. I don't plan to retire. I mean,
in the traditional sense.
Yeah, as a coach, I could do this well into my 80s. However long I want to do it. But the dream is to move to Niagara.
Well, I'm already living the dream.
That's our plan. It's always been our plan. So
there's a gentleman that you will probably get a kick out of if you ever want to look him up. His name is Lou Hollander. I think it's spelled L-E-W, Lou, and then Hollander.
Yeah.
And he's an Ironman triathlete. He was an Ironman into his into his late 80s. And there's a lot of great documented documentaries of him actually doing the Ironman at that age. And
wow.
part of his retirement is not only being an Ironman triathlete, but going out and speaking about how he's able to do these things.
Wow.
And I think that's when I think of my vision of retirement, that's retirement, is traveling the world, going out where people want to hear my story and learn what they could be doing differently to help serve them so that they might have an opportunity to change the course of their life from a health and happiness standpoint.
Yeah,
pretty basic stuff.
This is basically, a song sheet from my book as well, because you talk about me doing psychometrics. That's about this big. It's the assessment is this much of a large topic, and it's around getting in touch with yourself and your emotions and being able to control that in order to be able to relate better. So the psychometric piece is about this big, and it's not necessarily part of what somebody wants to do if they don't want to do the assessment, but the focus on emotional intelligence is what I provide. So the overview, the understanding of, and I think it's key in being able to live a better life.
Absolutely it is. Absolutely. So, Michelle, I wish you nothing but success. Please feel free to reach out, provide comments when you see stuff that resonates with you on my content. If you've got questions about marketing on LinkedIn, again, that's kind of my background that I'm learning. I'm a marketer, but I'm also learning about LinkedIn. It's kind of funny. A lot of my peers have I'm going to say they've given up on learning these new platforms. I feel like not only has the Ironman turned me into feeling like I'm 20 again, but learning about social media platforms and how to use them and how they work has made me feel like I'm 20 again. Like, it's a crazy, crazy feeling when you start just being energized every day to learn more. You just want to keep doing it, you know, like it's craziness. But I get the same vibe from you that, you know, you're in that place where you want to learn more. You know, you want to get that message out at scale. And even though it might be a one-on-one message, the beautiful part is that somebody might discover this conversation who's in their 60s in 10 years on YouTube and go, wow, this resonates with me. I love Michelle. I love Dave. Let's learn more. Yeah. That's the beauty of this, is that it will live forever. So thank you for spending the time, Michelle. I know we went a little bit over than the 30 minutes that we had allotted, but I truly value the time you spent with me this morning. So thank you very much.
Yes, and me as well, Dave. Let's keep in touch.
That sounds great. Well, you have an awesome day. Enjoy your weekend.
You as well.
Okay. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.